The old alien laughed, but now he must keep his word. JPG Kieran had always dreamed of exploring the far reaches of the galaxy. Growing up on Earth, a young planet in the grand expanse of space, he had always been fascinated by the unknown. The stories of distant stars, alien civilizations, and the mysteries hidden within the universe filled his mind with excitement and curiosity. But it wasn't until his first deep space mission that he realized how small, yet how capable, humans truly were. Kieran's ship, the Odyssey, had been on a routine mission to map a recently discovered star system. But fate had a different plan. While navigating through an asteroid field near the system's edge, the ship's sensors detected an anomaly. At first, Kieran thought it was just a glitch, a mistake in the data. But as he checked the coordinates, his heart began to race. The anomaly wasn't just a small mistake, it was something huge, something no human had ever encountered before. Following the coordinates, Kieran eventually found himself orbiting a planet unlike any he had ever seen. The atmosphere was thick and reddish, with massive storms swirling across the surface. He sent a team to investigate, but when they descended to the planet's surface, the sensors went dark. The ship lost contact with them, and Kieran was left with no choice but to go after them himself. The planet was dangerous, and the deeper Kieran ventured, the more he realized that this was no ordinary place. The landscape was dotted with crumbled ruins of what seemed to be an ancient civilization. And as Kieran made his way through the broken stone structures, he began to feel the weight of history pressing down on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching him. But it wasn't until he found the large, obsidian stone monument that he fully understood the significance of the place. The monument, standing tall amidst the ruins, was inscribed with symbols that Kieran couldn't read. But as he examined it closely, he noticed something strange, an energy radiating from the stone. Before he could investigate further, a voice echoed in his mind, deep and ancient, speaking in a language Kieran couldn't understand. He felt his body freeze, a cold shiver running down his spine as the voice repeated its command. "Prove your worth, human." Startled, Kieran stepped back, his heart racing in his chest. He glanced around, looking for any signs of life, but saw nothing. Suddenly, the stone monument began to shift, revealing a hidden door beneath the surface. Without thinking, Kieran stepped forward, determined to understand what was happening. The door opened to reveal an underground chamber, dimly lit by an eerie glow. Inside, an alien being sat upon a massive throne. The figure was old, his skin a dark, weathered blue, with a long, flowing beard that reached down to his chest. His eyes glowed with a strange, golden light, and his face was lined with deep wrinkles, each one telling the story of centuries of experience. The alien looked down at Kieran, his lips curling into a faint smile. "I am Vharok, leader of the Virillian Empire," the alien said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have come to the heart of my empire's ruins. Why? To seek knowledge. To understand the greatness of my people?" Kieran didn't know what to say. He had expected some kind of alien encounter, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. He stood in awe before the ancient being, his mind racing to comprehend the situation. But instead of fear, he felt something else, curiosity. He knew he had to prove himself. "I'm here to learn, to understand," Kieran finally said, his voice steady despite the shock. "If this is your world, then I want to know more about it. The people who built these monuments, the civilization that once thrived here. I believe there's more to the story than just ruins." Vharok's laughter filled the chamber, deep and resonant, as though he had heard the funniest joke in the galaxy. "Learn, you say?" Vharok scoffed, his golden eyes narrowing. "You think a species as young as yours has the capacity to understand the truth of the cosmos? You who have barely left your own system, you dare speak of learning?" The alien leaned forward, his eyes glowing brighter with each word he spoke. "Very well, human. I will offer you a chance, but know this. If you fail, you will not live to tell the tale. You will become just another forgotten species, lost to the stars." Kieran swallowed hard but didn't back away. He had faced challenges before, and he wasn't about to back down now. "What do I have to do?" he asked, his voice calm and firm. Vharok's laugh faded, replaced by a look of cold calculation. "You must prove your worth in 3 trials. Each one will test your strength, your intelligence, and your character. If you succeed, I will grant you the knowledge you seek. Fail, and you will be lost forever, just like the others before you." Kieran felt his heart beat faster, but he nodded. "I'll do it." I won't back down. The old alien's eyes narrowed again, a smile curling at the edges of his mouth. We shall see, he said, rising from his throne. Your first trial begins now. Prepare yourself, human. Kieran stood tall, his mind racing as he tried to prepare for whatever lay ahead. He didn't know what the trials would involve, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let fear control him. He had come this far, and he wasn't about to turn back now. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, and Kieran was ready to face whatever came his way. The first trial began the moment Viewership's voice echoed through the chamber, his words carrying a weight that seemed to shake the very air around Kieran. You have come to prove your worth, human, Viewership's voice reverberated, and your first trial will test your strength. You must face the Virillian beast. Kieran blinked, confused. The Virillian beast? He asked, the words feeling strange on his tongue. Viewership gave a low, mocking laugh. Yes, it is an ancient creature of the Virillian Empire, a creature once used in battle, strong, fast, and nearly invincible. If you can defeat it, you will have taken the first step in proving your worth. The alien's eyes gleamed, the amusement on his face a clear sign he didn't think Kieran would last long. Kieran felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. He had never fought a creature like that before. But there was something in the way Viewership spoke, something that made Kieran believe this trial wasn't about physical strength alone. It was about his willpower, his ability to think outside the box. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. There was no turning back now. The chamber around them began to shift, the stone walls melting away like water. Kieran's surroundings changed, and he found himself standing in an open, barren landscape. The sky above was dark and overcast, filled with swirling, violet storm clouds that seemed to flicker with bursts of lightning. The ground beneath him was cracked and dry, a desert of dust and broken rock. In the distance, Kieran saw a figure moving toward him. At first it looked like a shadow, but as it drew closer, the creature's features became more distinct. It was enormous, at least 10 feet tall, with muscular limbs and thick, leathery skin. Its eyes burned a fiery red, and its teeth, sharp and jagged, glinted in the dim light. The creature's roar echoed across the landscape, sending a chill down Kieran's spine. This was the Virillian beast, a creature unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was built for destruction, a machine of nature designed to overpower anything in its path. The ground trembled with each step it took, and Kieran could feel the weight of its presence even from a distance. He reached for his weapon, a standard energy blaster, but paused. The beast was massive, and he knew that a direct attack wouldn't work. This creature wasn't something he could just shoot and hope to defeat. It was far too strong, far too resilient. He needed to think differently. As the beast charged toward him, Kieran quickly scanned the environment. His eyes darted across the barren landscape, looking for any advantage. He spotted a series of large rocks piled high near the edge of the terrain. They were jagged and uneven, forming a natural barrier. An idea formed in Kieran's mind. If he could use the environment to his advantage, he might stand a chance. With a sudden burst of energy, Kieran sprinted toward the rocks, the beast hot on his heels. It howled in fury, its claws scraping against the ground as it chased him. Kieran's heart raced, but his mind stayed focused. He reached the rocks just as the beast lunged toward him, its massive jaws snapping shut just inches from his head. Without thinking, Kieran rolled beneath the rocks, narrowly escaping the beast's attack. He scrambled to his feet, using the rocks as cover. The creature roared, confused by Kieran's sudden disappearance. It began to circle the rocks, its eyes scanning the ground for any sign of movement. Kieran knew he had to move quickly. He grabbed a loose piece of rock, sharp and jagged, and hurled it toward the creature. The rock struck the beast's side with a loud crack, but it barely seemed to notice. Instead, it charged forward again, determined to catch its prey. Kieran ducked behind another rock, narrowly avoiding the beast's charge. He had no choice now. He had to take a risk. He reached for his blaster once more, but this time he didn't aim to shoot the creature directly. Instead, he fired at the ground beneath the beast's feet, sending up a burst of dust and debris. The beast roared again, distracted by the sudden explosion. This was his chance. Kieran sprinted out from behind the rocks and toward the creature's side. With his heart pounding in his chest, he aimed for the beast's legs, firing several shots at the joints where its limbs connected to its body. The shots weren't powerful enough to pierce its thick hide, but they were enough to cause the creature to stumble, its movements growing slower. As the beast reared back, its claws swiping at the air in fury, Kieran made his move. He leapt onto the creature's back, using its massive frame to propel himself higher. The beast howled, shaking violently in an attempt to throw him off, but Kieran held on tight. He scrambled up the beast's spine, his fingers finding purchase on the creature's rough skin. The creature thrashed beneath him, but Kieran was determined. He reached the beast's head, his hands gripping the back of its neck. He had no idea how long he could hold on, but he knew he had to finish this. With a sudden, forceful twist, Kieran drove his knife deep into the base of the beast's skull. The creature froze for a moment, a low growl rumbling in its throat, before it collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Kieran fell to the ground as the creature's massive body crashed beside him. He lay there for a moment, catching his breath, his heart still racing. The beast was dead, its massive body sprawled across the cracked earth. Kieran's mind was still processing what had just happened, but there was no time to dwell on it. He had won the first trial. But at what cost? As he stood up, wiping the dust from his clothes, Kieran glanced around, expecting to see Viewership's mocking grin. But the alien was nowhere to be found. Instead, a voice echoed in his mind again, calm and deep. "You have passed the first trial, human, but there are more challenges ahead." Kieran took a deep breath, wiping the sweat from his brow. He had done it, but this was just the beginning. He had proven his strength, but now he had to prepare for the trials to come. With the beast behind him, Kieran set his sights on the next challenge, ready to face whatever Viewership had in store for him. After the dust settled from his victory over the Virillian beast, Kieran felt a rush of both relief and tension. The first trial was over, but he knew it was just the beginning. Viewership, the ancient alien who had set these trials before him, had only promised 3 challenges. Kieran had completed the first, but the other 2 remained. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he was determined to prove himself. The world around him began to shift again. The barren landscape, once filled with jagged rocks and cracked earth, melted away, leaving Kieran standing in the middle of an expansive library. Shelves filled with ancient books stretched high into the sky, the air thick with the smell of old paper and dust. The lighting in the room was dim, with only a few rays of soft light piercing the shadows. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it a glowing orb. Viewership's voice boomed from the walls, echoing in the vast chamber. "The second trial will test your wisdom, human. You will face a puzzle that has stumped the greatest minds of the galaxy. If you fail, you will remain here lost to the ages." Kieran's heart skipped a beat. A puzzle? He wasn't exactly sure what kind of puzzle Viewership meant, but one thing was clear. He couldn't afford to fail. He took a step forward, his mind racing as he approached the glowing orb. As he got closer, he noticed that the orb wasn't just glowing, it was pulsing as if it was alive, reacting to his presence. The orb began to hum, and the bookshelves around him shifted. The air grew heavier, as if the library itself was holding its breath. The shelves slowly rearranged, and soon a series of symbols appeared on the walls, floating like holograms. Each symbol was a different color and shape, and they seemed to be connected by an intricate web of lines that crisscrossed across the room. Kieran stepped closer, his mind working to make sense of the display. The symbols on the walls were unlike anything he had ever seen. They weren't letters or numbers, but strange shapes that seemed to shift and change the more Kieran looked at them. Some symbols were geometric, others were organic, and still others seemed to defy logic entirely. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to think. Viewership's voice echoed again, this time with more emphasis. "To solve the puzzle, you must understand the connections between these symbols. Each one represents a different aspect of the universe: time, space, life, and death. The answer lies in the balance between them." Kieran's mind raced as he looked at the symbols on the walls. They were connected by a network of glowing lines, but how did they fit together? He couldn't make sense of them at first, but something deep within him told him to look beyond the surface. The symbols weren't just random, they were part of a greater whole. The balance between them was the key. He walked around the room, studying each symbol carefully. The first one he noticed was a small circle, glowing a soft blue. It was connected to several other symbols by thin lines of light. Kieran's instincts told him that the blue circle represented something significant. Time, perhaps? He wasn't sure, but it seemed to represent something in motion, something fluid. Next, he noticed a large, angular symbol in the far corner of the room. It glowed a harsh red, and the lines connecting it to the other symbols were sharp and jagged, as if they were cutting through the air itself. Kieran hesitated. This symbol felt different from the others, almost threatening. Was it death, destruction? Whatever it was, it didn't feel like it belonged. Kieran moved toward the symbol, stepping carefully over the glowing lines. As he drew closer, he realized that the jagged red symbol was connected to the blue circle. There was a relationship between them, but he couldn't quite figure it out. He had a sense that he was getting closer, but the puzzle was still just out of reach. His eyes then fell on another symbol, this one glowing green and pulsating with energy. It was in the shape of a spiral, and the lines connecting it to the other symbols were fluid, almost like water. The spiral seemed to represent something alive, growth perhaps, or perhaps something more profound like life itself. Kieran studied it carefully, his mind spinning as he tried to place it into the puzzle. He continued to walk around the room, examining each symbol, trying to figure out how they all connected. As he thought about the puzzle, something clicked. The symbols weren't just random shapes, they represented the fundamental forces of the universe: time, space, life, and death. The challenge wasn't about understanding the individual symbols, it was about understanding how they interacted with one another. The symbols represented opposites, time and space, life and death, but they weren't in conflict. Instead, they existed in a delicate balance, one that held the universe together. The key to solving the puzzle, Kieran realized, was to align the symbols in a way that reflected this balance. He walked back to the blue circle and connected it to the red jagged symbol. It felt right, as if the two were opposites but complementary. Then he moved the spiral symbol closer to the blue circle. As he did, the entire room seemed to shift, the symbols aligning in a way that felt natural. The lines connecting them began to glow brighter, and the orb at the center of the room pulsed with energy. Kieran's heart raced as he made the final connection, linking the spiral symbol to the jagged red one. The moment the last line of light connected, the entire library seemed to come alive. The symbols shifted and rearranged, but this time they formed a new pattern, a perfect circle in the center of the room. The orb in the middle glowed brighter than ever before, and Kieran could feel the weight of the universe itself in that single moment. For a brief second, everything was still. Then Viewership's voice echoed through the chamber again, this time filled with genuine respect. "You have solved the puzzle, human. You have proven your wisdom, but the final trial awaits." Kieran took a deep breath, feeling a rush of accomplishment. He had completed the second trial, but he knew the third would be the hardest of all. He turned to face the pedestal at the center of the room, where the glowing orb still pulsed with energy. The third trial would test his character. It would be the ultimate challenge, and Kieran was determined to face it head-on. As the room around him began to fade, Kieran's thoughts turned to what lay ahead. The trials had tested his strength and his wisdom, but the final trial would be different. It would test the very core of who he was. He wasn't sure what would come next, but he knew one thing for certain. He would give everything he had to prove humanity's worth. With that thought, the room vanished, and Kieran was left standing in the silence of space, ready for whatever the final trial would bring. Kieran stood in the emptiness of space, his mind still processing the events of the second trial. He had solved the puzzle, a challenge that had tested his intellect and patience, but the trials were far from over. The final test loomed before him. His heart raced with anticipation, but there was no time to rest. He could feel the weight of the trials on his shoulders, knowing that each one brought him closer to proving humanity's worth. But the final trial would be different. It wasn't about strength or wisdom. This trial would test his very character. Before him, the space around him began to shift once again. The vast emptiness of space dissolved into the warm glow of a familiar place. Kieran blinked, taking in his new surroundings. He was no longer alone. The chamber was filled with light, and at its center stood a massive pedestal, upon which lay a delicate, glowing object. As Kieran stepped closer, he realized it was a beautifully crafted Virillian artifact, a symbol of the ancient civilization. It was intricately detailed, shimmering with colors that seemed to change with every movement. Viewership's voice echoed in the air, calm and authoritative. "The third trial, human, is the trial of sacrifice. You must choose between two things, a powerful object that will give you unimaginable strength or the life of someone you care about. The choice is yours, but choose wisely. If you fail, you will remain here lost forever, just as the others before you. Kieran's breath caught in his throat. The weight of the decision hit him all at once. He had faced physical challenges and intellectual tests, but this was something entirely different. He was being asked to make an impossible choice, power or someone he loved. Could he choose the right path? What if he chose wrong? He stared at the artifact, its glow enticing, promising power beyond anything he could imagine. With it, he could change the course of history. He could shape the future of humanity, grant Earth a place among the stars, and command respect from all the other civilizations. But was that the right thing to do? Could power, even the greatest power in the galaxy, truly replace the people he cared about? Kieran closed his eyes for a moment, trying to clear his mind. He thought about his family back on Earth, his friends, the people who had trusted him with this mission. He thought about all the humans who looked to the stars for answers, for hope. They weren't ready for such power, not yet. He couldn't risk it, not without knowing the consequences. But then he thought about the people in his life, his colleagues, the crew of the Odyssey. They had all come with him on this journey. If one of them was in danger, would he sacrifice everything for their survival? He had to. He couldn't leave them behind. The decision was clear. Kieran walked away from the artifact, turning his back on the power that could change everything. Instead, he reached out for something more precious, the life of a friend. A friend who had given him the strength to go on, who had been by his side through every trial. At that moment, the air around him began to hum. The lights in the chamber flickered, and the artifact began to fade. Kieran felt a sense of relief wash over him, as though a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The decision had been difficult, but it had been the right one. He had chosen humanity over power, and that was what mattered most. As he stood there, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. It was Dr. Elara, a fellow scientist and one of his closest friends. She had been part of the mission from the very beginning, and they had shared many long nights discussing the possibilities of their journey. She had supported him, pushed him to be better, and helped him stay focused on the mission. In that moment, Kieran realized just how much she meant to him. Elara's eyes met his, a quiet understanding passing between them. She knew what he had chosen. She knew the burden of the decision, and she understood why he had made it. There was no need for words between them. She simply smiled, her face filled with admiration. She had always believed in Kieran, even when he doubted himself. And now, Kieran knew that his decision was the right one, not just for him, but for the future of humanity. Viewership's voice echoed in the chamber once more, but this time there was a note of respect in it. "You have passed the third trial, human. You have proven your character. You are worthy of your place among the stars." Kieran felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of pride and relief. The trials were over. He had faced impossible choices, battled fierce creatures, and solved complex puzzles. But it was his ability to make the right decisions, to prioritize the well-being of others over his own desires, that had proven his worth. He had shown that humanity was capable of greatness, not just through strength or intelligence, but through compassion and sacrifice. As the chamber around them began to fade, Kieran turned to Elara, his heart full of gratitude. They had made it through the trials together, and now they were ready to face whatever the future held. The path ahead was still uncertain, but Kieran knew one thing for sure: humanity would rise to meet it, just as he had risen to meet the challenges set before him. In the distance, a new light began to shine, bright, pure, and full of promise. Kieran and Elara walked toward it, knowing that their journey had only just begun. There was still so much to explore, so much to learn. And together they would take the first steps into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next with hope and determination. The light ahead grew brighter, and Kieran felt a sense of peace wash over him. The trials were over, but his journey was far from finished. As he walked beside Elara, his thoughts lingered on the lessons he had learned in the past days. The trials had tested his strength, his wisdom, and his character. But more than that, they had shown him the true meaning of leadership and the importance of making choices that would shape the future. Kieran had proven that humanity was not only capable of great things, but also had the heart to achieve them. The trials were designed to break him, to push him to his limits, and yet he had risen above them. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about understanding the weight of the decisions he would one day have to make as a leader, as someone who represented his people in a vast and unknown universe. The light in front of them seemed to pulse with energy, and as Kieran and Elara approached, they found themselves standing on the edge of a massive platform. Below them, a city sprawled across the horizon, its towering structures stretching toward the sky. It was a place of incredible beauty and technology, a city built by the hands of ancient beings whose civilization had long since faded. Yet, their legacy remained, a testament to what could be achieved when knowledge and wisdom were passed down through the generations. Kieran could feel the presence of something powerful, something greater than anything he had ever known. The city before him was not just a place. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol of the potential for all civilizations to rise, to reach beyond their limits, and to work together for a common goal. A figure stepped forward from the shadows of the city, tall and imposing, with skin that shimmered like polished metal. It was Viewership, the ancient alien who had set the trials before Kieran. His eyes were no longer filled with mockery, but with something else, respect, perhaps even admiration. "You have done it, human," Viewership said, his voice filled with gravitas. "You have passed the trials, and you have earned your place among us. You have proven that humanity is not a mere footnote in the history of the galaxy, but a force to be reckoned with." Kieran felt a rush of pride at the words. He had done it. He had shown that humans, despite their youth and inexperience, were capable of greatness. But more than that, he had shown that they were capable of making the hard choices, the choices that mattered most. Viewership stepped aside, revealing a large, glowing object behind him. It was a ship, sleek and powerful, its design far beyond anything Kieran had ever seen. The ship was not just a vehicle, it was a symbol, a key to the next chapter of humanity's journey. "This is the Virillion Gateway, a vessel unlike any other," Viewership explained. "It is a gift to you and your people. With it, you will be able to explore the farthest reaches of the galaxy, to chart the unknown and make your mark on the universe. But this ship is not just a tool for exploration. It is a symbol of what humanity can achieve when it chooses to rise above its limits." Kieran's heart raced as he looked at the ship. It was more than just a ship, it was the future. It was the key to humanity's place in the galaxy. He could see it now, the vastness of the journey ahead, the endless possibilities that lay before them. And at the heart of it all, humanity would be there, ready to take its place among the stars. He turned to Alara, her eyes filled with excitement and wonder. They had come so far together, and now they stood on the threshold of something truly extraordinary. Kieran knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with the lessons of the trials behind him, he felt ready for whatever came next. "Are you ready?" he asked her, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Alara smiled, her expression one of quiet determination. "Always," she replied. "We've come this far, there's nothing we can't face together." Kieran nodded, his gaze turning back to the Virillion Gateway. It was time to take the next step, to leave the past behind and venture into the unknown. The galaxy was vast, filled with mysteries and dangers, but it was also full of hope and opportunity. And humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, would be a part of it. As they approached the ship, Viewership's voice once again filled the air, calm and measured. "You have earned your place, human, but remember, this is just the beginning. The trials were not meant to break you, but to prepare you for what lies ahead. The galaxy is a place of great beauty, but also great danger. You must continue to grow, to learn, and to lead. Your journey is far from over, but it has only just begun." Kieran looked at Viewership, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "We won't let you down." Viewership nodded, his gaze shifting toward the stars above. "I believe you," he said. "And now it is time for you to take your place among the stars." Kieran stepped aboard the Virillion Gateway, his heart pounding with excitement. He had proven his worth, and now the future was in his hands. The ship's engines roared to life, and as it lifted off the platform, Kieran looked out at the galaxy before him. The stars stretched out in every direction, vast and infinite. There were so many worlds to explore, so many mysteries to uncover. And Kieran knew that, together with Alara and the rest of humanity, he would lead the way. The galaxy was waiting, and humanity's journey had only just begun.